In this tutorial, we'll learn how to install UDK and discuss the very basics of using UDK. So to get started, you'll want to go to udk.com, which will redirect you to this website here, or you could just type this in exactly as you see it. Now, whenever you come to this website, you'll want to go to just the right here, and it'll say Downloads. And you'll click on that, and it's going to redirect you to the Downloads page where you can find the latest release of UDK. Now, in our case, we're going to be using February of 2013 using the UDK beta. And whenever you are ready to download that, you want to go ahead and click on this link and then download that file. Now, once that file has been downloaded, you'll find it in your Downloads folder, okay, under your username, probably your My Documents area. Okay, and once you find that file, go ahead and double click on that, and it's going to bring up the install setup here. Now, there are a few things that we'll want to take care of as we're installing. It's going to ask us and give us a few different options. So once we run this, it's going to go through its process of bringing everything up, and of course you want to agree or accept the end user license agreement. Make sure that you read through that as it is very important. Usually a lot of people like to skip over these, but it does have quite a bit of information that you would need to know if you were really serious about creating a game using the Unreal Development Kit. Okay. Now, even if you just want to use the Unreal Development Kit, you'll want to go through some of these as well. Now, once you're ready, you can go ahead and accept or reject that. Of course, we're going to be accepting this because we want to go ahead and move forward. Now, it's going to give you a type of project that you want to create. You can use a UT sample game, which is going to include all of the Unreal Development Kit with its sample Unreal Tournament content and game code and things like that. And it's going to help you get a game running much faster. Now, of course, it's using the existing code for an Unreal Tournament game. So if you don't want that and you want to start from scratch, you can use an empty game. Now, if you're a complete beginner and you've never touched Unreal at all whatsoever and you have no idea about scripting or anything like that, you'll want to go ahead and start out with a UT sample game. This empty game is for more advanced type of users, and I'm sure that we'll see that in the future. So going on, we're going to hit next and we're going to tell it where to install. Now, you can give it a different location by hitting Browse. In this case, I'm going to keep it right on my C drive, okay, and we're going to use that UDK folder there. But I am going to go ahead and change the name to this. There's nothing wrong with that. So I'm going to call this DT underscore UDK or intro, underscore UDK. And this is just going to help us find this a little bit easier. Now, you can name this whatever you like. Following along with this tutorial, I would suggest naming it exactly the way that I have it here. Go ahead and install that, and it's going to go through all the processes of installing UDK. And I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, wait for this to finish, and you can go ahead and do the same. Just wait for this to finish on your machine as well. Alright, so it's going to come to a point where it's going to ask you to install any extras, and it's really going to ask you to install the Perforce server and Perforce visual client. Now, this is going to be very helpful if you need a control system to help you collaborate with team members and working on multiple versions of your project and things like that, and it also helps with backing up your work. Now, in this case, we're not going to be using Perforce simply because we don't have a project that is going to be such large scale that it's going to need something like this. But if you want to learn more about that, you can simply use these links here to find out more about that. So we're just going to hit Next, and it's going to ask us to go ahead and launch the UDK. Now, in my case, I don't want to do that. I'm going to go ahead and actually return to my desktop. Now, if you want to go ahead and jump right into UDK, you can do so, but I'm going to show you how to launch that here in just a moment. So let's go ahead and finish this. Now, what I want to do at this point is I want to go to my C drive, and I'm going to go to that UDK folder that we just installed here. So we have DT intro underscore UDK. Let's go ahead and double click on that. And I want to talk about these files that are in this folder. These are going to be very important, and it's going to be very important for you to understand exactly what is contained in these different files. So the file structure that we have here, we have binaries, development, engine, and then UDK game. What is entailed in all of these? Well, there's a lot of different files in each one of these, but just to give you an overview, the binaries file has all of the game binary executables. So if we open this, we can see that we have several of different .exe files that are going to be needed during the development process in UDK. Okay, now let's go ahead and go back here, and you'll see that we have a development folder, and in here we're going to have all of the different source code for UDK. So if you go into source, you're going to see that you have several different folders to go into, and you can explore some of those scripts just to kind of get an idea of what that looks like. Now, I wouldn't suggest going through any of those if you have no idea on how to script at all at this point. So I would go ahead and just leave those the way they are. And in our next folder, we have the engine folder. Now, in this is going to contain all of our engine files. So if we double click on this, we're going to have things like config, where we'll be able to config some of our default files and things like that, but we're going to go ahead and leave those alone. Now, finally, we have UDK game. This contains all of our game files for our level design, and the most important file that we're going to be looking at while we're in here is going to be our content folder. So if we double click on that, you're going to see that we have maps, and we have mobile, shared, showcases, test packages, UT3. If we go ahead and open that up, you're going to see that we have several other files, and you'll see that it becomes a little bit more familiar, where we can start looking at some of the character files and things like that. Now, in this character files, you'll see that we have .upk. Now, what is that exactly? Well, a UPK file is actually a package file, and it's basically a container, and they hold things like models, textures, animations, materials, and things like that. So it's going to hold a lot of your different game assets. So a UPK is a package file. Now, another type of file that you're going to see, if we go ahead and go back to our UDK game content folder, you'll see maps. And inside of maps, if we go to examples here, you'll see that we have .udk. Now, these are going to be your maps files, and maps are essentially packages. However, they're going to be saved independently from your package's content. Okay, now we'll discuss more about that as we dive deeper into the content creation portion of our course here. So now what we want to do is we want to talk about actually launching the editor. We've installed it, we've talked about the file structure, we got an overview of what that file structure entails. So let's talk about how to open the editor. Well, we can do this very simply by going to Start. Now, obviously, you're not going to be able to see this on my screen, but you can follow along. So go to Start, All Programs, and then you'll see Unreal Development Kit. Now, under Unreal Development Kit, you're going to have a file, and it's going to be UDK-2013-02. Now, you're probably wondering, well, we renamed that, so why isn't it showing up that way? Well, whenever you use the UT sample game project, it's going to default to that name under the Start menu. Okay, so you can expand that, and you'll see UDK Editor and then UDK Game. Now, if you want to start creating levels and things like that, you want to use the UDK Editor. So go ahead and click on that, and that will go ahead and launch the Unreal Development Kit. And we'll wait for that to load up, and it shouldn't take very long here. Now, once this is loaded, let's go ahead and resize this. Alright, sorry about that. So now that we've loaded this up, you'll see that we have a welcome screen, which gives us a lot of good information. Once you finish out this course here, you could probably start to dive into some of the deeper topics by going into the documentation. You could even look at some of the other video tutorials that UDK has to offer and things like that. And you could even start editing by creating a new map or even opening an existing map right from this welcome screen. Now, normally this tends to get in the way after a while, and I like to uncheck that just to keep that from showing up at startup. Now, if you ever want to get back to that welcome screen, you can simply go to Help, Show Welcome Screen. Okay. Now, you're going to notice a couple of things whenever we open up our UDK editor. You're going to notice that we have our content browser. Okay, and the content browser is basically just going to hold all of our different packages and all of our content that we see inside of UDK. Now, the first section that I want you to pay attention to, and it's going to be very important, is going to be our packages section here. And you're going to see that we can begin to organize all of our different content, pieces of content under the UDK game. We can go to content here, and you can see all those files that we looked at earlier. Okay. Now, if we expand this and we go to something like the UT3 like we did before, We can go into characters and you can select one of these packages and see exactly what is entailed in this preview of that package. Okay, so in this we can see that we have a lot of different textures in this one. So you can kind of play around with this and start to look through some of these different packages that are available. So just to kind of give you an idea, if we go to this this character, which is ch_IronGuard male, you can see that we have different textures, we have materials, and then we also have a skeletal mesh, which is our character here. Okay, now a skeletal mesh and some of these different terms that you're going to see, we're going to discuss those as we progress throughout this course here. Now finally, inside of our content browser, you're going to see that we have this search function, which we can come in and we can type in anything really. We could even type in texture, and it's going to bring up all of the different textures that are in the package that we have selected here. Okay. Now if we want, we can go just to the content folder, and that's going to show everything that's in this content folder. Okay, that is a texture. So anything that has that texture 2D is going to show up here. Okay, so we can come in and we could say something like skeletal mesh, and you'll see that all of those show up. Now usually this search is used for finding a specific type of character. So if I type in iron, you can see that we start to get a little bit of a different type of view here. So you can see that we have that iron guard. So if we actually type that in, this will show even more results or less results. It kind of filters it down. Now if we're looking for that skeletal mesh, we could always come into our object type and we could actually just say, just search for skeletal meshes. So you'll see that we have a flag, and then we also have the skeletal mesh here. So this is going to be a great way to kind of sort through your content as you begin to build your project and building more and more assets. All right, so with that said, let's go ahead and move into our next lesson, where we're going to go ahead and break down the interface and learn how to actually navigate inside of the UDK viewport.